Welcome back, folks. I'm doing today a topic that's a little closer to myself. Maybe a lot of you will have an opinion on it. A lot of you probably will have an opinion that disagrees with me. But I've mentioned a couple times before that, I did serve in the Israeli army. I do have parents that are Israeli, were Israeli in my mom's case. And it's always been a topic that's been a sore point for me. I've never gotten along with Israelis as a community. I just don't find them particularly fun to be around. Not compared to the Irish. In fact, I have a lot more Arab friends that I think they have better temperament in general than the Israelis. But notwithstanding that, I support my family. I support my the people in my religious community, and I see it as a religious community, being Jewish and supporting the people, the children of Israel, because in reality, our belief system holds that Israel is not the name of just a country, it's the name of a person, our ancestor, Jacob. That's not something that I can just go and cast away just because I'm uncomfortable with it. It's really a bond that you don't choose to take. It's a bond that is made immediately. And that being said, I've come to realize that I identify culturally as an American. I identify much more with the American experience than I do with the Israeli experience. It's a fact of where I grew up and what I absorbed as a kid. I think it's kind of affected me for good or for better or for worse in a way that I don't know if I could change it. And there's a lot of people I know that they live a whole life. They try to posture themselves. I'm not talking about American Jews. They try to posture themselves more to be in line with Israeli culture. They want to learn Hebrew. They want to do all of these other things that will align them more closely with that facet of their identity. And I've talked about it more in terms of other issues with Jewish identity that I think are not to my thinking, such as the Holocaust identity, where people identify their Jewish self exclusively through the Holocaust and persecution. That's not what I believe. And I believe that we have over 5,000 years of of recorded history, and that's really the type of heritage that I think that we should embrace more. We should embrace more of the ideas that come from our heritage, from the Bible, from the Talmudic times too. There's plenty of people they want to smear our religion as backward, as disgusting, as idiotic. Look, I am calling out today the progressive, liberal, Jewish establishment in its entirety across all political and cultural divides, but it has different heads on the same hydra, and I'm not talking about it in the sense that anti-Semites do, because I'm saying this is how it affects us as a community. We have this fake posturing all of our lives. People they just want to identify as Jewish in order to it's kind of a stupid game for them in many cases. And I think for some people they're just living according to their capabilities, and that's fair. Not everybody grew up and had a full exposure to what our religion believes in and what our faith entails. Okay, so I'm not blaming people that don't know any better. But the establishment should know better, and what they're doing by having these clowns at the head of our communities, the ADL, for example, banning people based on basically politically correct talking points. Those people don't represent me. And you have all these other groups that try to make it seem as if they represent the broader Jewish culture in America. They represent themselves. They represent the interests, just like in any other community. There's an elite in the black community. There's an elite in the Protestant churches, the Catholic communities, various churches, but they're every single one of them, they have a different degree of power. I think, for example, the black elite is holding the rest of their people back further than the Jewish elite are, because obviously there's a lot of Jews that are in successful positions, irrespective of how close they are to these leadership positions. But let's consider this. We're living in an era where this progressive obsession of the liberal elite in Jewish communities has run its course, and I think we've seen the result that's come. We have numerous children of Jewish families that simply renounce our people and are ashamed of us. And I've had experiences where, I don't feel exactly proud of things that are going on in the community, and I'd say that I'm not as I'm not the person who's going around showing the flag all the time and being active all the time in the community. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people. Last year there were these idiots, these BDS idiots that were mostly Jewish at Ohio University over in Athens, Ohio. It's pretty far from where I live, but it's still in my state. And they were doing these, I think it was the ice bucket challenge with fake blood and whatever, and they were talking about apartheid and whatever. They wouldn't know fucking apartheid if it bit them in the fucking dick, these little bitches. And they grew up here, and they suckled at the teat of affluence and of a privileged lifestyle that their parents gave to them in the belief that they could stave off their worst instincts. And these children have betrayed the very mandate that their ancestors have given them, which is to preserve, or at least discover in their own turn, the secrets and I want to say secrets, but it's not just an issue of it being a secret. These are secrets because people don't study them. But the treasures of this nation, I actually encourage people who belong to other groups. I have plenty of friends that are Egyptian. I encourage them to remain true to their heritage. It doesn't mean that I'm telling them to think that they're better than me, but I think that these people, you see a lot of these Jewish people, they go to college, they want to be anything but who they are. And, I'm not going to say I'm totally innocent. I was going to college, I was trying to be anybody but the person at the front, always being conspicuous, because I knew that the campus activities are geared towards often demeaning the memories and the dignity of being Jewish, and it's all under the guise of being anti-Israel. Now, look, I'm not saying that people shouldn't have the right to say some of these inflammatory things. Freedom of speech is a double-edged sword. I say things that are not comfortable to be heard. But the the slanderous character of this speech on campuses has made the issue of being openly Jewish into a challenge today. But it's become a challenge also because previous generations, these Woody Allen type Jewish people, that they've always been too neurotic to actually embrace who they are as people. Those people have set the ground for the problems that we have today. And I think it's time that we started to turn back the tide and start to tell these entitled millennial fruits that, we don't need to listen to you. A lot of us did not grow up and become, instantly accepted to Cornell and everything. We know that there was a time when our people were not welcome in this country, but we've come here to say that we're not going to be just a bunch of, basically baking pins and whatever. We're not going to be rolling over to in order to conform to whatever shape that you want us to. Okay? And nothing I think exemplifies this argument than the support by a lot of these liberal Jews and their offspring, their youngsters, to movements like Black Lives Matter. Now, I had a person who was a Black Lives Matter supporter on for an interview, I think a couple weeks ago. He was a nice guy, but as a whole, I think that the movement does not want us. They don't want to have anything to do with us. We're considered their enemy, in fact, I think in many ways. And I, for one, could give a shit what their social justice agenda is, because the social justice agenda always masks the real agenda. The real agenda is always power. And in every one of these societies, they want to project their power way beyond their proportional representation in society. And these liberal Jews are enablers. And let me tell you another thing. If the whole point of groups like Black Lives Matter is to reclaim cultural authenticity for their own group, in their case the blacks or Afro-Americans or whatever the fuck you want to call it, okay, which is, I guess it's their issue. I don't have any problem with that. But if that's their position, then this liberal Jewish bullcrap that's been going on for 60 years is now invalidated, because then they should go and embrace a similar doctrine, a similar approach to their own identity. Their own identity has nothing to do with, Afrocentric colors, or whatever, the blue. It's not blue, it's green, black, and red. The colors of African liberation, that's theirs, they can have it. I don't really care. By the same token, they're always scared of the white nationalists. I feel equally unwelcome on both sides. I don't really see, it's possible for people to have friends on either side. It's still kind of bizarre, but If you're really into this whole cultural authenticity nonsense, and I'm talking to you, the Jewish liberals, then maybe you should embrace your Judaism more. Maybe you should go and explore our religious heritage more, and not rely on this cheap bull crap that you always do. And I'm going to switch in a second to a clip. This is their literal god, this Bernie Sanders asshole, and his position on Israel-Palestine. Another thing that he claims to understand, but yet he has no coherent position on it except blaming the obvious person and not really having an answer. So here it goes. This is from, excuse me, I know I'm sounding like kind of goofy today, but that's the way it is. I make these videos late. So this Majority Report with Sam Setter.
Big Israel Day.
You've said that the U.S. should be even-handed when it comes to dealing with the Israelis and the Palestinians. So does that mean that the U.S. should remain neutral to achieve peace?
No, what it means is that if we want lasting peace in the Middle East, we have got to obviously make sure that the security and the independence of Israel remains intact. That is not a debate. Israel must continue to exist as an independent, free state. But if we are going to have lasting peace, we have also got to work with the Palestinians. And what that means, we have got to recognize that in Gaza, for example, in Gaza, you got an unemployment rate of 44%. You have people living in horrific poverty. You have a community that was destroyed. So if we are going to go forward, it cannot be that the United States just takes the side of Israel. We've got to work with both communities to try to do what is very, very difficult, and that is create a lasting peace in the region.
Do you think the U.S. has not been even-handed up till now?
Right, I do not think so. I think that overwhelmingly the United States, time and time again, has looked aside when Israel has done some bad things. I think, for example, that the growth of settlements in Palestinian territory is not acceptable to me and not conducive to the peace process. I think that the kind of destruction that was wreaked on Gaza during that war was way above what needed to be done for military purposes. A lot of civilians were killed. A lot of hospitals and schools and apartments were destroyed above and beyond what had to be done. So look, I think there is no question that there's enough blame to go around on both sides. Israel has the right to defend itself against terrorist attacks, against Hezbollah, against Hamas. But I think the United States is stronger when we work with both sides.
What's fascinating to me about this is taking him this long to say this. I mean, this is a very, very strong statement. I think this is certainly by far the most, I don't know how to characterize this. I don't want to say left, but yeah, I mean left of center anyway statement that we've ever heard by a major candidate in a primary who was, you know, in March still mathematically could potentially be the nominee of the Democratic Party. I mean, the statement is late, but it is certainly welcome. And I can only imagine, I don't know what the calculation of this is. I don't know if it's frankly because maybe Donald Trump opened up some oxygen to the left of Hillary on this, frankly. I don't know. Maybe it's because Sanders feels that in the states going forward, he will not.
So anyway, enough of this crap. Here we have a Jewish politician, Bernie Sanders, and a Jewish commentator, Sam Seder, that are basically groveling at the feet of the peace movement, okay? Now, okay, fine. You want to believe that garbage, go ahead, but, you know, what would be a real position on this? What would be a real position? The real position would be non-involvement. The real position would be that, you know, we let these countries independently determine their own path, and the United States does not take part in it. And liberal American Jews, you know, I'm tired of it. You know, either you're connected to it or you're not connected to it. And if you're not connected to it, then go the fuck home. You know, you've contributed nothing over the past 100 years, and you basically, your ethnicity or your religious identity, either one. I mean, people see it, you know, in either way. Some people see their Jewishness as an ethnicity. Even though they don't even speak the language, they never would have spoken the language, they view it with shame. And instead they want to pick on the Israelis. You know, fine. I've said before, I don't support the AIPAC position. I think that foreign aid is done. It's proven to be ineffective. It's proven to actually be detrimental to both sides, the Israelis and the Palestinians. I think it's not good for either side. We need to do a disinvestment of, and by disinvestment I don't mean, you know, there should be no business with them. I'm saying that we should disinvest ourselves from the conflict in ways that are financially tied. You know, we should still cooperate with the Israelis. I don't think there's anything to cooperate with the Palestinians on. I mean, they've proven themselves to be virtually pawns in the hands of their fellow Arab states in many different ways throughout their history. But I'm done with this game playing on the part of these clowns. And this was from last year, so, you know, it's old news. But last week was Israel Independence Day. And I think that my role is not the same as other people that are interested in this conflict. I was actually asked by somebody I know, a good friend, to be on one of these committees that are, you know, pro-Israel and whatever, and learning Israel policy. And I did turn him down. I thought, you know, not because I don't appreciate it. The guy, you know, it was his offer. I think he knows that I have an experience and points of view that could be good contributions. But, you know, for me, it's more important to tell my ideas that I think are different from the rest of the spectrum on this issue, whether it's on the Palestinian side or the Israeli side. And, you know, I have a unique experience with both of those sides that most people here don't. And I don't want to go and compromise my position for any organization or for AIPAC, especially a lobbyist group. I want my position to be an independent position. But I'm not going to go and, legitimize these communists, basically, these idiots, these fakes that permeate our community, that they claim that they're part of a pluralistic Judaism. Your pluralism is bullshit, okay? If you were part of this whole progressive social justice nonsense, then you would embrace your religion much more, which you don't. You look at it with shame and have virtually zero identification with it. In fact, it's almost like some sort of burden that you keep, like if your mother packs your fucking teddy bear to go to sleepaway camp with you and you're ashamed of it because it makes you look like a little kid. Well, looky here. Look, if you have such a problem with it, then don't even pretend that you're one of us. Just pretend you're one of those fucking assholes that are in England, the ones that are protesting these fake labor people that are pretending that they're so progressive, that they're supporting this Jeremy Corbyn numbnuts. Okay, because we don't have any use for you. Obviously, you don't have any use for us. Okay, if you want to be part of the identifying as the community or as part of our communion with God, then you would have to renounce this. But obviously, you have no interest in this. Cultural relativism, multiculturalism, is a disease, and it's affected every single community. It doesn't matter which one it is. It doesn't matter if it's the Mexican community. It doesn't matter if it's the Jewish community, as I'm explaining here. It doesn't matter. In fact, I think the only communities that are really putting up any good resistance to this nonsense are the various Asian communities. You have the Japanese Americans and Chinese Americans. And, for a few generations, they hold steady. And then in some cases, over time, their kids become fruitcakes just like our kids. And I'm not going to have it. I'm saying, if you're one of these retards, like the ones at Ohio University that keep doing these demonstrations or whatever, and you're so unproud or not proud of your Jewish heritage, then I don't think that you really need to pretend anymore who you represent. You represent somebody else and you don't represent us. Okay? And you have people that are career elitists like that. There's that Sidney Blumenthal creep that Hillary Clinton keeps around. That guy, I have zero identification with the guy. Well, what do I have to... The very fact that he's a Hillary Clinton stooge is enough. The fact that his son is basically spreading lies about his people is just a cherry on top. And there's only so much you can take before you finally snap and you say, you know what, fuck you, dude. Fuck you, Sidney Blumenthal. Here, I'll pull up a picture of him. Yeah, that's Sidney Blumenthal. He's pretty much this prick from the New Yorker that the Clintons hired, and he became their stooge. And he's been their stooge for the past 20, 30 years, getting rich and having his kid write libels about the rest of the Jews. And they pretend that it's not, it's not a Jew thing. They pretend, it's because they're trying to be more enlightened and whatever. You know what? If you were more enlightened, you wouldn't back some fucking hack loser like Hillary Clinton over and over again. That's why you've ended up on the losing end of campaigns against Barack Obama and Donald Trump. That's who you are. You're basically losers. We don't need losers. We need winners. Even in our community, the Jewish community, and that's it. So maybe a little of a rambling message today. Bottom line, look, if you're an anti-Israel person, fine, go ahead. Go ahead, knock yourself the fuck out. That's fine. But you Jewish liberals, that you're all into these pluralistic identities and multiculturalism, grow the fuck up already. Nobody really takes you seriously anymore. You're all a joke. It's obvious you don't want to be who you are, and nobody thinks you're deeper because of it. I know so many of you, and it's gotten old, and we're just tired of hearing from you. So this is Ramon, bold like a leopard. And you know what? Here's a message. Anybody out there, doesn't matter what community you're from, you know, if you're Croatian. I love the Croatians, by the way. I work in an area where there's a lot of Croatians. Just live by who you are. Just stop being a fucking fake like this Sidney Blumenthal asshole. So have a great night. It's bold like a leopard. And, you know, write if you need anything, if you want to be interviewed. I'm open to interviewing just regular people. Have a great night. Bye-bye.